The security lights turned her tears into diamonds as Zara stood in the circular driveway, watching her whole life get thrown out window by window. First her clothes, still on hangers, flying through the air like broken birds. Then her books, pages flapping as they hit the wet concrete. Her laptop followed, shattering on impact. The rain soaked through her thin sweater within seconds, but she couldn't move. She was 17 years old, 5 months pregnant, and her father was doing this. Her father. The man who used to carry her on his shoulders. The man who once told her she could be anything. "Get off my property." Nicole's voice cut through the storm. Her stepmother stood in the doorway, perfectly dry under the covered entrance, her arms crossed over her silk blouse. "You've embarrassed this family enough." Behind Nicole, Zara could see her father, Richard Monroe. He wouldn't look at her. His jaw was set, his hands in his pockets. The man who owned half the commercial real estate in the city couldn't even meet his daughter's eyes. "Dad, please." Zara's voice cracked. The baby inside her kicked, as if it could sense the fear flooding her system. "I have nowhere to go." "You should have thought of that before you got yourself knocked up like some common." Nicole stopped herself, but the damage was done. "You're not bringing shame into this house. We have a reputation. I have children to think about." Children. Nicole's twins from her first marriage. They were 14 and they were watching from the upstairs window. Tyler and Becca, who Zara had tried to bond with for 3 years. Tyler's face was expressionless, but Becca looked like she might be crying. "Dad." Zara took a step toward the house. Water ran down her face, mixing with tears. "Please. It's raining. I'm pregnant. I'm your daughter." Finally Richard spoke. His voice was flat, rehearsed. "You're old enough to make adult choices. You're old enough to face adult consequences. Your mother would be ashamed of you." The mention of her mother, who had died when Zara was 12, was the killing blow. Nicole had said it before in their arguments, but never had her father used those words. Zara felt something inside her crack like ice breaking under pressure. "Mom would never do this to me," Zara said quietly. "She would never choose someone else over her own child." "Pack what you can carry," Richard said, turning away. "You have 10 minutes before I call the police for trespassing." Zara's hands shook as she grabbed what she could, a backpack that had landed in a puddle, some clothes she shoved inside wet. Her phone was in her pocket. She had $47 in her wallet. That was it. 17 years of life reduced to a dripping backpack and 2 20s and a 5 and 2 1s. She walked to the end of the driveway and looked back one last time. The mansion stood there like a fortress, lit up against the dark sky. Nicole closed the door. The sound of it shutting was final, absolute. Zara started walking. She didn't know where she was going. The baby's father, Justin, had blocked her number when she told him she was pregnant 2 weeks ago. He was a freshman at the state university planning to go to law school. A baby didn't fit his timeline. He told her to handle it, and then disappeared from her life like she had never existed. Her mother's parents lived in Florida and they were old. They couldn't help. Richard had cut off her mother's side of the family after the funeral anyway, said they were trying to make claims on the estate. Zara had lost contact with them years ago. Her phone rang. She pulled it out, hope flaring. Maybe her father changed his mind. But it was Nicole calling. Zara answered. "I'm calling to tell you not to come back," Nicole said, her voice cold and clear. "If you show up here, I will have you arrested. If you try to contact your father, I will get a restraining order. You made your choice when you decided to ruin your life. Don't drag us down with you." "You did this," Zara said, her voice stronger than she felt. "You've been pushing him to get rid of me since you married him. You wanted the whole estate for your kids." "Prove it," Nicole said, and Zara could hear the smile in her voice. "Your father made this decision. He chose his family over his mistake. Goodbye, Zara." The call ended. Zara stood under a bus stop shelter, water dripping from her hair. She was shivering now, the cold seeping into her bones. She pulled out her phone and Googled, "homeless shelters near me." There were 3 within walking distance. She chose the one that said it accepted pregnant women. The walk took 45 minutes. By the time she reached the shelter, her teeth were chattering so hard she could barely speak to the woman at the intake desk. The woman, whose name tag said Gloria, took one look at her and wrapped a blanket around her shoulders. "How old are you, baby?" Gloria asked gently. 17, Zara whispered. "I'm 17 and I'm pregnant and I have nowhere to go." Gloria's face softened with a sadness that said she had seen this before too many times. "Come on. Let's get you warm and dry. We'll figure out the rest tomorrow." That night, Zara lay in a narrow bed in a room with 5 other women. She could hear someone crying in the next bunk. Someone else was snoring. The building smelled like industrial cleaner and desperation. She put her hand on her stomach and felt the baby move. "I'm sorry," she whispered to the child inside her. "I'm so sorry you're coming into this. But I promise you something. I promise we will never be powerless like this again. I will figure out how to survive. I will figure out how to thrive. And one day they will regret this. Not because I'll hurt them, but because they'll see what they threw away." The baby kicked again, harder this time. Zara took it as agreement. She closed her eyes and made herself a promise in the dark. She would remember this night. She would remember the rain, the locked door, her father's silence, Nicole's cruelty. She would remember feeling like nothing. And she would use it. She would let it fuel her instead of break her. Because the only thing worse than this moment would be staying in this moment forever. Tomorrow she would start figuring out how to survive. But tonight she let herself cry. She cried for the father who chose a woman he'd known 3 years over the daughter he'd known 17. She cried for the mother who wasn't there to protect her. She cried for the girl she had been that morning, who still believed family meant something. When she was done crying, she wiped her face with the scratchy shelter blanket. Then she took out her phone and did something she would later realize was the first step in her journey. She opened a note and wrote, "Day 1. I have nothing. But nothing is a place to start building from." She fell asleep with her hand on her stomach, the baby's heartbeat keeping rhythm with her own. Outside the shelter, the rain continued to fall. But inside, Zara had made a decision. She would survive this. And years from now, she would make them all see exactly what they had lost. 6 months later, Zara's hands were raw from scrubbing floors, but they were the most honest hands she'd ever had. The baby was due in 3 weeks, and she was still working 2 jobs, cleaning houses during the day and stocking shelves at a grocery store at night. The women's shelter had a 6-month limit, and her time was almost up. Dorothy Franklin found her crying in the bathroom of a house they were cleaning together. Dorothy ran a small cleaning business called Sparkle and Shine, and she'd hired Zara when no one else would hire a pregnant teenager with no references. She was 70 years old, with silver hair she kept in a neat bun and eyes that missed nothing. "Baby girl, you can't keep doing this," Dorothy said, helping Zara up from the floor. "You're going to hurt yourself or that baby." "I need the money," Zara said, wiping her face. "The shelter is kicking me out next week. I have to find somewhere to live." Dorothy was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I have a room above my garage. It's small but it's clean. You can stay there. We'll work out the rent once the baby comes and you're back on your feet." Zara stared at her. "Why would you do that for me?" "Because somebody did it for me once," Dorothy said simply. "And because I see something in you, girl. You've got fight in you. You just need somebody to give you a chance." 3 weeks later, Zara gave birth to a baby girl in the county hospital. She named her Haven because that's what she wanted to give her, a safe place in a world that had been anything but safe. Dorothy was the only person in the delivery room. She held Zara's hand through 18 hours of labor and cried when Haven was born. "She's beautiful," Dorothy whispered, looking at the tiny girl with perfect brown skin and a head full of dark hair. "She looks just like you." Zara looked at her daughter and felt something shift inside her chest. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about building something. It was about making sure Haven never knew what it felt like to be thrown away. The room above Dorothy's garage was small, just a bedroom, a bathroom, and a kitchenette. But it was clean and safe and warm. Dorothy wouldn't accept rent for the first 6 months. Instead, she helped with Haven, watching her while Zara worked and slowly built up enough money to breathe again. Zara started taking online courses to finish high school. She studied after Haven went to sleep, her laptop balanced on her knees in bed. Math, English, history, science. The work that used to bore her now felt like building blocks. Each completed assignment was proof she was moving forward. During the day, while Haven napped, Zara studied business books from the library. She read about entrepreneurs who started with nothing. She learned about market gaps and customer service and financial planning. She took notes in a spiral notebook that became her most precious possession after Haven. One day, while cleaning an office building downtown, she saw her father. He was in a conference room, visible through the glass wall, giving a presentation about his company's expansion. Richard Monroe looked older, grayer, but still powerful in his expensive suit. Zara stood in the hallway with her cleaning cart, wearing a uniform with someone else's name on it, and watched him. He never looked her way. Not once. She was invisible to him. The help. The background. Nothing. That night, Zara looked up her father's company. Monroe Properties had expanded into 6 new states. The business was booming. Nicole was on the board now, listed as vice president of development. The company website had photos of the family at charity events. Richard, Nicole, Tyler, and Becca, all smiling in formal wear. There were no photos of Zara. She had been erased. She thought it would hurt more than it did. Instead, she felt something cold and clear settle in her chest. They had written her off. They thought she was gone, ruined, a mistake they had corrected. Good. Let them think that. Zara created a new email address and signed up for business newsletters. She joined online forums about commercial real estate. She started learning her father's industry from the ground up, piece by piece. If she couldn't get an education the traditional way, she would educate herself. By the time Haven was 6 months old, Zara had her GED. She framed the certificate and hung it on the wall of their little room. Dorothy brought a cake to celebrate. "What's next?" Dorothy asked, watching Zara blow out the candles with Haven on her lap. "I'm going to start a business," Zara said. The words felt audacious coming out of her mouth. She was 18 years old with a baby and almost no money. But she said it anyway. Dorothy didn't laugh. She just nodded. "What kind of business?" "I'm going to start reselling things online. Clothes, furniture, whatever I can find at thrift stores and garage sales. I've been researching it. If I can make enough money doing that, I can save up for something bigger." "You'll need a computer," Dorothy said. "I have my laptop." "You'll need inventory money." "I have $100 saved." Dorothy looked at her for a long moment. Then she reached into her purse and pulled out an envelope. "Here's 500 more. Consider it an investment. When you make it big, you can pay me back double." Zara took the envelope with shaking hands. "Dorothy, I can't." "You can and you will," Dorothy said firmly. "Stop arguing with me and start building your empire." That night, after Haven was asleep, Zara sat at her laptop and created a business plan. It was rough and probably full of holes, but it was real. She outlined her strategy for finding and reselling items. She researched shipping costs and profit margins. She set goals, small ones at first, then bigger ones. At the bottom of the page she wrote, 5-year goal, own my own company. 10-year goal, be worth more than my father. 15-year goal, make him see what he lost. It seemed impossible. She was a teenage mother living in a room above a garage, working for minimum wage. But she had been thrown out in the rain with nothing, and she had survived. She had given birth alone and built a life from nothing. If she could do that, she could do anything. The next morning, Zara went to 3 garage sales before her shift at Dorothy's company. She bought a leather jacket for $3, a set of vintage dishes for $5, and a designer purse with a broken strap for $2. That night, she fixed the purse strap with a sewing kit, cleaned the dishes, and photographed everything. She listed them online. The purse sold in 2 days for $45. The jacket went for $30. The dishes took a week but sold for $40. She had turned $10 into over $100. Zara stood in her little room, staring at the notification on her phone, and laughed. It was a small victory, almost meaningless in the grand scheme of things. But it was proof that she could do this. She could identify value where others saw junk. She could turn nothing into something. Haven woke up and started crying. Zara picked her up, bouncing her gently. "You know what, baby girl? We're going to be okay. Better than okay. We're going to show them all." Haven grabbed Zara's finger and held on tight. Zara looked at their reflection in the window, a young woman with dark circles under her eyes and a baby in her arms, standing in a room that wasn't really theirs. It wasn't the life she had imagined at 17, but it was the life she was building. And it was just the beginning. 5 years had changed everything and nothing at all. Zara was 22 now, and Haven was starting kindergarten in a school district 3 times better than the one near Dorothy's garage. They still lived simply, but they lived with purpose. Zara's reselling business had grown beyond anything she imagined. What started with garage sale finds had evolved into a sophisticated operation. She had learned to spot valuable items at estate sales and auctions. She knew which brands held their value and which vintage items were about to become trendy. She had a storage unit full of inventory and a system for photographing, listing, and shipping that ran like clockwork. But it wasn't enough. She was making decent money, but decent wasn't going to build an empire. She needed something bigger, something sustainable. That's when Dorothy's health started failing. She was 75 now, and the years of physical labor were catching up. Arthritis made it hard to hold cleaning supplies. Her back hurt constantly. One day, she sat Zara down at her kitchen table. "I'm retiring," Dorothy said, "and I'm leaving the business to you." Zara's throat tightened. "Dorothy, I can't accept." "Yes, you can. Who else am I going to give it to? My kids moved away years ago. They don't want a cleaning business. But you've been working beside me for 5 years. You know every client, every system. And more than that, you have vision. You see what this could become. Dorothy slid a folder across the table. Inside were the business documents, client lists, and equipment inventories. It's not worth much on paper. Maybe $50,000 in assets and contracts. But it's steady income. And I think you can turn it into something more. Zara looked at the papers, her mind already racing with possibilities. What if I change the focus? Instead of residential cleaning, what if we went after commercial contracts? Office buildings, retail spaces. The margins are better, the contracts are longer. Dorothy smiled. See? That's exactly what I'm talking about. Take it and make it yours. Within 6 months, Zara had transformed Sparkle and Shine into a commercial cleaning company. She hired a small crew, invested in better equipment, and put together professional presentations for potential clients. She targeted mid-sized office buildings that were too small for the major national chains but too big for individual cleaners. Her first major contract was a 6-story office building downtown. She walked into the property manager's office wearing a suit she'd bought at a consignment store and carrying a pitch she'd rehearsed 50 times. She undercut the competition by 15% while promising better service and faster response times. She got the contract. Then another. Then another. By the end of the first year, she had 12 commercial contracts and 10 employees. By the end of the second year, she had 25 contracts and was expanding into building maintenance services. Not just cleaning but minor repairs, landscaping coordination, and vendor management. The business needed a new name. She changed it to Elevation Building Services. The name meant something to her, a reminder that she was rising, always rising. That's when fate gave her the opportunity she'd been unconsciously waiting for. One of her new contracts was for a property managed by Monroe Properties. She saw the name on the contract and felt her heart stop. She took the job. Of course she took it. The property manager never connected Zara Bennett. She'd started using her mother's maiden name legally, with Richard Monroe's daughter. Why would he? She was just another service contractor. But Zara walked through that building and studied everything. She learned how Monroe Properties operated, how they managed vendors, where they cut corners, what their expansion plans were. She was invisible again, but now she was invisible by choice. She was gathering intelligence. One day she saw him. Richard Monroe walked through the building's lobby with 2 associates, talking about quarterly earnings. He was 10 feet away from her. Zara stood by her cleaning cart, wearing her company's uniform, and watched him pass. He didn't even glance at her. She was part of the background, the invisible labor that kept his properties running. Good. That night, Zara sat at her kitchen table with a notebook and a glass of wine. Haven was asleep. The apartment was quiet. She started writing down everything she'd learned about Monroe Properties. Their expansion strategy focused on secondary markets. They were leveraging debt heavily to acquire new properties. Their property management was average at best. She saw the weaknesses. More importantly, she saw the opportunities. She started attending industry conferences and networking events. She joined the local commercial real estate women's association. She made herself visible in professional circles while remaining invisible in her father's world. At one conference, she found herself in a conversation with an investor who mentioned being impressed with Elevation Building Services. "You've built something solid in a short time," he said. "How old are you, if you don't mind me asking?" 22, Zara said. He laughed. "You're younger than my daughter and you're running $1 million company. That's impressive." "It's not $1 million yet," Zara said. "But it will be." He gave her his card. "When you're ready to scale, call me. I like backing people who know what they want." Zara kept that card in her wallet. She wasn't ready yet, but she was getting there. One day she took Haven to the park. Her daughter was 5 now, smart and curious, with Zara's determination and her own fierce independence. They sat on a bench eating ice cream watching other kids play. "Mama, why don't I have a daddy?" Haven asked suddenly. Zara's chest tightened. She'd known this question was coming. "Your daddy wasn't ready to be a father," she said carefully. "But you have me and you have Dorothy, and that's enough." "What about your daddy?" Haven asked. "Do you have a daddy?" Zara looked at her daughter's trusting face and chose her words carefully. "I did. But he made choices that hurt me, so he's not in our life anymore." "Did he say sorry?" "No, baby. He didn't." Haven thought about this, licking her ice cream cone. Then she said, "If he saw how awesome we are, maybe he would say sorry." Zara pulled her daughter close. "Maybe. But it doesn't matter anymore. We're building our own family, our own life. We don't need people who don't choose us. Haven nodded, satisfied with this answer. They finished their ice cream and went home. That night, after Haven was asleep, Zara sat at her laptop and looked up Monroe Properties again. The company was doing well, but there were rumors of internal problems. A business partner was being investigated for some financial irregularities. Stock prices had dipped slightly. Zara bookmarked the article. She wasn't ready to make a move yet, but she was watching. She was learning. She was preparing. She had gone from nothing to something. Now she needed to go from something to everything. The girl who was thrown out in the rain was gone. In her place was a woman with a plan, a daughter to protect, and absolutely nothing to lose. The people who discarded her had no idea what was coming. But they would. Eventually they would all see exactly what they had thrown away. And by then it would be far too late to get it back. At 25, Zara sat in a conference room looking at numbers that would have seemed impossible 3 years ago. Elevation Building Services now had 50 employees and contracts with over 100 commercial properties across 3 states. The company was worth $6 million. But Zara wanted more. She always wanted more. She'd been attending business classes at the community college, learning everything she could about finance, operations, and strategic growth. Her mentor, Patricia Chin, was a business professor who ran a women's entrepreneurship program. Patricia saw something in Zara that reminded her of herself 30 years ago. Hunger, intelligence, and the kind of determination that came from having nothing to fall back on. "You're hitting a ceiling," Patricia told her over coffee one morning. "You've maximized what you can do in building services alone. If you want to grow exponentially, you need to diversify or acquire something that complements your core business." "I've been thinking about that," Zara said. "There's a tech startup that's struggling. They developed a smart building management system. Sensors, automated controls, data analytics for energy usage and maintenance needs. The technology is solid, but they're running out of money. And you want to buy them. I want to integrate their technology with my services. Imagine offering clients not just cleaning and maintenance, but a complete smart building solution. We can promise lower energy costs, predictive maintenance, better efficiency. It would put us in a different league entirely." Patricia studied her. "How much do they want?" $3 million. "I don't have it. But you could get it. Your company is profitable, you have contracts that guarantee income. A bank would loan you the money. Or you could bring in an investor." Zara thought about the investor whose card she still carried in her wallet. "If I take investment money, I give up control." "Some control," Patricia corrected. "But you gain resources, connections, and the ability to move faster. You're 25, Zara. You're already ahead of schedule. But if you want to build something truly significant, you need to be willing to take calculated risks." Zara thought about Haven, now 7 years old and thriving in a good school. She thought about Dorothy, who had moved into a retirement community but still called weekly to check on her girls. She thought about the years of struggling, saving every dollar, building slowly and carefully. Then she thought about the Monroe Properties quarterly report she'd read last week. Her father's company was worth $50 million now. Nicole had been promoted to executive vice president. Tyler and Becca were both working there now too, learning the business. Her family, her real family, the one that threw her out, was thriving. They probably never thought about her. She was the mistake they had corrected. Zara pulled out her phone and called the investor. 3 months later, she owned the tech startup. The acquisition used every dollar of credit she could access, plus $2 million from the investor in exchange for 25% equity in her company. It was terrifying. She was betting everything on her vision. The integration was rocky at first. The tech people didn't understand building services. Her building services people didn't understand technology. Zara spent 16-hour days bridging the gap, learning the technical details herself so she could translate between worlds. But it worked. Within a year, Elevation Building Solutions, she'd changed the name again, was offering something unique in the market. They weren't just cleaning your building, they were making it smarter, more efficient, more profitable. The business press started noticing. A regional magazine did a profile on her. At 26, she built a multi-million-dollar empire from nothing. The article mentioned that she was a single mother who started her first business while living in a shelter. It didn't mention Richard Monroe. Zara had kept that part of her story carefully hidden. The article got attention. She started receiving speaking invitations. Other entrepreneurs wanted to know her story. Investors reached out with opportunities. One day, she was invited to speak at a national commercial real estate summit. It was the biggest event in the industry with thousands of attendees. Zara almost said no. Public speaking still terrified her. But Patricia convinced her. This is how you get to the next level, Patricia said. Visibility brings opportunities. Zara stood backstage at the summit, wearing a navy suit that cost more than a month's rent used to, watching the previous speaker finish. Her heart pounded. Haven was in the audience with Dorothy, who had insisted on coming. Then she heard her introduction. Our next speaker built a multi-million-dollar company before age 27, starting from a women's shelter. Please welcome Zara Bennett, CEO of Elevation Building Solutions. Zara walked onto the stage. The lights were bright. The audience was huge. For a moment, she felt like that girl standing in the rain again, small and powerless. Then she saw Haven in the third row, giving her a thumbs up. Dorothy was beaming with pride. Zara took a breath and began speaking. She talked about identifying market gaps. She talked about sustainable growth strategies. She talked about integrating technology with traditional services. She didn't talk about being thrown out or about her pregnancy or about scrubbing floors while pregnant. She talked about business. The presentation was 20 minutes. When she finished, the applause was thunderous. During the Q&A, a man in the front row asked a technical question about her smart building systems. Zara answered confidently, diving into the details. After she left the stage, people swarmed her with business cards and questions. She was polite, professional, networking strategically. She had learned this skill the hard way, how to be memorable without being desperate, how to be confident without being arrogant. That's when she saw him across the room. Cameron Price. She recognized him from business publications. A billionaire real estate investor, 45 years old, known for identifying promising companies and helping them scale rapidly. He was watching her with an expression that was hard to read. Their eyes met. He nodded, a small acknowledgement. Then he turned and walked away. Zara felt her pulse quicken. Cameron Price had been at her presentation. Cameron Price had watched her. That had to mean something. It meant everything. 2 days later, his assistant called. Mr. Price would like to meet with you to discuss your company. Would you be available for coffee next week? Zara checked her calendar. She had 3 meetings that day, but she moved them. I'm available, she said. The coffee meeting was supposed to last an hour. It lasted 3. Cameron asked detailed questions about her business model, her technology integration, her growth plans. He wasn't just making conversation. He was doing due diligence. I'm impressed, he said finally. You built something real. A lot of young entrepreneurs have flash but no substance. You have both. Thank you, Zara said, keeping her voice steady. I'm interested in learning more. Would you be open to dinner? I'd like to hear about your long-term vision. They had dinner. Then another coffee. Then lunch. Over 6 months, their relationship developed from business interest to professional respect to something that felt like friendship. Cameron was different from anyone Zara had met. He was successful but not arrogant. He asked questions and actually listened to the answers. He treated her like an equal. When he met Haven, he didn't treat her like an obligation or a complication. He asked about her school, her interests, her dreams. Haven liked him immediately. Is he your boyfriend? Haven asked one night after Cameron left. He's my friend, Zara said carefully. But do you like him? Zara thought about the way Cameron looked at her like she was someone worth knowing. She thought about how he made her laugh, how he challenged her thinking without making her feel small. Yes, she said. I like him. But she still hadn't told him about her father, about being thrown out, about the real reason she was building her empire. That part of her story was still buried, a secret engine driving everything she did. One day she would tell him. But not yet. First, she needed to become powerful enough that the truth couldn't hurt her anymore. Cameron Price was not the man Zara thought she would ever let into her life. She had spent 8 years building walls, being self-sufficient, trusting only Dorothy and Haven. Men were potential liabilities, distractions from her goals. But Cameron was different in ways she hadn't expected. Their relationship developed slowly over 2 years, moving from professional respect to genuine affection. He didn't try to rush her or push past her boundaries. He showed up consistently, proving through actions rather than words that he was trustworthy. Cameron's backstory was something he revealed gradually. He had grown up working class, built his first real estate fortune by 30, lost everything in a bad partnership at 35, and rebuilt even bigger by 40. He understood failure. He understood starting over. When Zara talked about building her business from nothing, he didn't romanticize it or act like it was easy. He got it. The hardest part isn't starting with nothing, he told her once over dinner. It's knowing that nothing is where you might end up again if you make the wrong choice. That fear never really goes away. Does it get easier? Zara asked. Making those choices? No. You just get better at living with the consequences. Cameron met Haven regularly now. They had Sunday morning breakfast together, Zara, Haven, and Cameron at a diner that made the best pancakes in the city. Haven, now 9 years old, was getting used to having Cameron around. Do you have kids? Haven asked him one morning, syrup on her chin. No, Cameron said. I was married once a long time ago. We didn't have children. It didn't work out. Why not? Haven, Zara said gently. That's a personal question. It's okay, Cameron said. She's asking because she's trying to figure out if I'm going to stick around, right? Haven looked surprised that he understood. Yeah. The honest answer is that my ex-wife and I wanted different things. She wanted someone who would be home for dinner every night and play golf on weekends. I wanted to work 18-hour days and build something. Neither of us was wrong, but we weren't right for each other. What about now? Haven asked. What do you want now? Cameron looked at Zara, then back at Haven. Now I want someone who understands what it means to build something. Someone who has her own dreams and doesn't need me to complete her life, but maybe wants me to be part of it anyway. Haven considered this. Like my mom. Like your mom, Cameron agreed. After breakfast, while Haven was in the bathroom, Cameron said quietly, I hope that wasn't too presumptuous. About wanting to be part of your life. It wasn't, Zara said. Her heart was beating fast. But Cameron, there are things about my past that... I know you started with nothing, he interrupted gently. I know you had Haven when you were young. I know it was hard. You don't have to explain your past to me unless you want to. But that was the thing, she was starting to want to. For the first time since that night in the rain, Zara wanted to trust someone with the whole truth. She didn't tell him that day. Or the next week. But 2 months later, when Cameron asked her to go away with him for a weekend, she said yes. Haven stayed with Dorothy, who was thrilled. They went to a cabin in the mountains, a place Cameron owned. It was simple but beautiful, huge windows overlooking a valley, a fireplace, peace. They cooked dinner together, drank wine, talked about everything and nothing. That night, sitting on the porch under the stars, Zara told him. She told him about her mother dying when she was 12. About her father remarrying Nicole 2 years later. About getting pregnant at 17 and being thrown out in the rain. About the shelter, about Dorothy, about building her business while raising Haven alone. She told him about watching her father walk past her without recognition. About seeing her family thriving while she was scrubbing floors. About the cold decision she had made to learn everything about her father's business, to build something that would eventually rival what he had. I'm not just building a company, she said finally. I'm building proof that he was wrong. That throwing me away was his biggest mistake. Cameron was quiet for a long time. Then he said, What's your father's name? Richard Monroe. Monroe Properties. I know the company, Cameron said slowly. I've looked at some of their properties. Decent management, heavy leverage, some questionable partnerships. Nicole's cousin is his business partner, Zara said. I found that out 2 years ago. And you're planning what exactly? I don't know yet, Zara admitted. Maybe nothing. Maybe just becoming successful enough that he sees me and realizes what he lost. Or maybe... She trailed off. Maybe you want to beat him, Cameron finished. Own more, be worth more, become bigger than he ever was. Is that wrong? No, Cameron said. It's human. But Zara, I need you to think about something. Revenge is expensive. Not in money, in focus, in time, in peace. I've seen people destroy themselves trying to prove something to someone who doesn't deserve their energy. This isn't just about revenge, Zara said. It's about Haven never being powerless. It's about building security so we can never be vulnerable like that again. Those are different goals with different strategies, Cameron said. Security is about sustainable growth and smart investments. Revenge is about taking risks to make a statement. You need to figure out which one matters more. Zara didn't have an answer. They went inside and went to bed, but she couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about what Cameron had said. About the difference between security and revenge. About what she really wanted. At 3 a.m, Cameron woke up and found her sitting by the window. Can't sleep? I've spent 8 years with one goal, Zara said. Prove them wrong. Show them I survived. Become undeniable. But Haven is 9 now. She doesn't know about any of this. She doesn't know about her grandfather or what happened to me. And I wonder sometimes if I'm doing all this for her or for myself. Cameron came and sat beside her. Maybe it's both. Maybe it started as one thing and became another. That's allowed, you know. To change your mind about what you want. What if I can't? Zara whispered. What if the girl who got thrown out in the rain is still running everything, and I'm just along for the ride? Then we figure out how to let her rest, Cameron said. Together if you want. 3 months later, Cameron proposed. They were at the same diner where they had Sunday breakfast with Haven. He didn't get down on one knee or make a big speech. He just pulled out a ring and said, I want to build a life with you in Haven. I want to be part of your family. Will you marry me? Haven started crying happy tears before Zara could answer. Say yes, Mom. Say yes. Zara looked at Cameron, this man who knew her history and didn't flinch, who loved her daughter, who understood ambition because he had it too. She thought about 8 years of being alone, of trusting no one, of building walls. Then she thought about the possibility of something different. A partnership. A family. A life that wasn't just about proving a point. Yes, she said. Haven cheered. Cameron smiled and slipped the ring on her finger. Other diners were watching now, smiling at the scene. Everything felt normal and good and right. But in the back of Zara's mind, she was already thinking about Monroe Properties. About the rumors she'd heard that they were overextended financially. About the opportunity that might be coming. She loved Cameron. She wanted this life with him. But she also wanted justice. Maybe she could have both. The question was whether justice and revenge were the same thing, or whether she was lying to herself about which one she was actually chasing. 2 years after Cameron's proposal, the wedding was 6 months away and life had never been more complicated. Zara was 27, her company was worth over $50 million, and Haven was 11. Smart, confident, and completely unaware that her grandfather existed 20 miles away. Elevation Building Solutions had expanded into 6 states. The smart building technology had become industry standard in their contracts. Zara had a staff of 200, an office building she owned outright, and a reputation as one of the most innovative young CEOs in commercial real estate services. She and Cameron had bought a house together, a beautiful modern home with enough space for Haven to have her own floor and for them to have offices. Dorothy visited weekly, now 82 but still sharp. They were planning a small wedding, just family and close friends. Everything was perfect. Everything was exactly what Zara had dreamed about during those years of struggle. Then Patricia called with information that changed everything. Monroe Properties is in trouble, Patricia said. Real trouble. Have you been following the news? Zara pulled up her laptop. There it was. Richard Monroe's business partner, Nicole's cousin Gerard, had been indicted for fraud. He'd been creating fake contracts, inflating property values and siphoning money into offshore accounts. The investigation had expanded to include possible money laundering. Monroe Properties stock had tanked. Banks were calling loans. Partners were trying to distance themselves from the company. Richard was all over the news, looking older and tired, insisting he had no knowledge of Gerard's activities. But the articles told a different story. Gerard had been moving money with Nicole's approval. She'd signed off on multiple suspicious transactions. The investigation was looking at her too. Zara read article after article, her heart pounding. Her father's empire was crumbling. The family that had thrown her out was facing ruin. She should have felt satisfaction. Instead, she felt something complicated, a mix of vindication, anger, and something that might have been grief. Cameron came home and found her at the kitchen table, surrounded by printouts and financial reports. You're looking at Monroe Properties, he said. It wasn't a question. Gerard has been embezzling for years, Zara said. But Nicole was helping him. She's been pushing my father into bad deals so Gerard could skim money off the top. They're going to lose everything. Cameron sat down across from her. What are you thinking? I'm thinking they're vulnerable. I'm thinking a strategic acquisition could buy the company at a fraction of what it's worth. I'm thinking I could own everything my father built. And then what? Then he works for me, Zara said, the words coming out harder than she intended. Then he sees what he threw away. Then he understands exactly what he lost. Cameron was quiet. Finally, he said, Do you want my honest opinion? Always. This is the moment, Cameron said. This is the choice between building security for Haven and pursuing revenge. If you buy Monroe Properties as a strategic business decision, I'll support you. But if you're buying it to make your father suffer, that's different. That's going to cost you something beyond money. Why can't it be both? Zara asked. Why can't I make a smart business move and get justice at the same time? Because justice and revenge aren't the same thing, Cameron said. Justice is about making things right. Revenge is about making someone hurt. One heals you. The other hollows you out. He threw me out pregnant in the rain, Zara said, her voice shaking. He chose Nicole over me. He erased me from his life like I never existed. You're telling me I should just let that go? I'm not telling you anything, Cameron said gently. I'm asking you what you want your life to look like after this is done. Do you want to spend the next decade running a company while your father watches? Do you want Haven to grow up knowing that story? Or do you want to build something new, something that has nothing to do with them? Zara put her head in her hands. I don't know. That night she couldn't sleep. She went to Haven's room and watched her daughter sleep, peaceful and secure. Haven had never known hunger or fear or uncertainty. She had never felt the cold rain soaking through her clothes while her belongings were thrown onto a driveway. Zara had given Haven everything she didn't have. Safety, stability, love. Did Haven need to know about Richard Monroe? Did she need to know her mother was capable of the kind of calculated revenge Zara was considering? The next morning, Zara called Patricia. What would it take to acquire Monroe Properties? The company's worth is down to maybe $30 million, but it has over $20 million in debt. You'd need to convince the banks to restructure, buy out the remaining shareholders, and probably keep Richard on in some capacity to maintain client relationships. $50 million total, maybe 60. I don't have that. No, but Cameron does. Or he could help you raise it. Is he on board with this? He's supporting me in figuring out what I want. Zara, Patricia said carefully. I've been your mentor for 7 years. Can I speak frankly? Please. Your success is already the best revenge. You've built a life that's extraordinary. You're about to marry a good man who loves you in Haven. You have money, security, reputation. Walking away from Richard Monroe and letting him deal with his own mess might actually be the bigger power move. Or it might feel like he got away with it, Zara said. Did he? Patricia asked. Think about it. He threw out his daughter and lost her. He married a woman who stole from him. His business partner betrayed him. His life is falling apart while yours is thriving. That's not him getting away with anything. That's consequences. After the call, Zara went for a walk. She ended up at the park where she used to take Haven when they lived above Dorothy's garage. The same benches, the same playground, but everything else had changed. She thought about that day when Haven asked about her daddy. About how Zara had explained that some people weren't ready to be parents, that family was who chose you. If she bought Monroe Properties, what would she tell Haven? How would she explain that Grandpa exists but threw Mommy away? How would she teach Haven about forgiveness and moving forward while simultaneously spending millions to take control of a man who hurt her? Zara sat on the bench for a long time watching children play. She thought about the girl she was at 17 making a promise in a shelter. She thought about the woman she was now, about to marry a man who saw her completely and loved her anyway. Then she thought about what Cameron had said. Justice and revenge aren't the same thing. What did justice look like? Maybe it looked like this, sitting on a park bench, healthy and whole and loved, while the people who hurt her faced the consequences of their own choices. Maybe justice was already done. But revenge looked like acquiring Monroe Properties, taking control, making Richard Monroe work for his daughter while she owned his legacy. Revenge looked like winning so completely that there was no question who had the power. Zara pulled out her phone and called Cameron. I want to do it, she said. I want to acquire the company. But I want to do it the right way. As a business decision, not an emotional one. Can you help me figure out if it makes sense? Yes, Cameron said. But Zara, before we go down this road, are you sure? No, Zara said honestly. But I need to at least explore it. I need to know what's possible. Then I can decide. Over the next month, Cameron's team did a thorough analysis of Monroe Properties. The company was salvageable but would require massive restructuring. The real question was whether it was worth the energy and capital when Zara could invest that money in her existing business instead. The answer from a pure business perspective was maybe. It wasn't a clear yes. But the answer from an emotional perspective was clear. Zara wanted this. She wanted to walk back into that world and claim what should have been partially hers to begin with. The question was whether what she wanted was worth the cost. Not just in money but in peace, in focus, in the simplicity of the life she was building. Cameron put together a presentation with 2 scenarios: acquire Monroe Properties or walk away and invest in organic growth. The numbers were clear. Either path could work. It was up to Zara to choose which one aligned with the life she wanted. She had 6 months until the wedding. 6 months to decide if she wanted to start her marriage as a woman seeking revenge or a woman building something new. The choice felt impossible. But it was hers to make. 4 months later, Zara sat in the back of a silver limousine with Cameron beside her and Haven in front with Dorothy. They were driving toward the Monroe estate, the mansion Zara had been thrown out of 10 years ago. The decision to acquire Monroe Properties hadn't been easy. Zara had spent weeks running numbers, talking to advisors, having long conversations with Cameron about whether this was worth the emotional cost. In the end, the business case was solid enough to justify the move, but Zara was honest with herself about the real reason she was doing this. She wanted them to see her. Not as the broken girl they threw away, but as the woman she had become. She wanted that moment of recognition, that split second where they realized exactly what they'd lost. "Are you nervous?" Cameron asked, squeezing her hand. "Terrified," Zara admitted. "I haven't seen them in 10 years. I don't know what I'm going to feel." "You're going to feel powerful," Haven said from the front seat. "Because you are powerful." Haven knew now. Zara had told her everything 2 weeks ago. About Richard Monroe, about being thrown out pregnant, about building their life from nothing. Haven had cried, then gotten angry, then hugged her mother fiercely. "I want to come with you," Haven had said. "I want to see the man who hurt you." Zara hadn't been sure about bringing Haven, but Dorothy had convinced her. "Let her see where you came from," Dorothy said. "Let her see how far you've risen. She needs to understand that strength isn't just about never falling, it's about getting back up." The limousine pulled through the gates of the Monroe estate. Zara looked at the mansion and felt like she was watching a movie of someone else's life. The circular driveway where her belongings had been thrown. The front door that had closed with such finality. The windows where her half-siblings had watched her leave. "This place is huge," Haven whispered. "I grew up here," Zara said. "Until I was 17. The driver opened the door. Zara stepped out first, wearing a cream-colored suit that cost more than a month's rent used to. Cameron followed, then Haven and Dorothy. They looked like exactly what they were, a successful family arriving for a business meeting. The front door opened. Nicole stood there and Zara felt time shift. Nicole was older now, lines around her mouth, gray in her blonde hair. She looked tired. She looked scared. She looked at Zara and didn't recognize her. "Can I help you?" Nicole asked, her voice uncertain. "Hello, Nicole," Zara said. "I'm here to discuss the acquisition of Monroe Properties. I believe your attorney told you to expect us." Nicole's face went white. Her eyes widened as recognition hit like a punch. "Zara?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "Ms. Bennett," Zara corrected coolly. "This is my fiancé, Cameron Price, my daughter Haven, and my associate Dorothy Franklin. May we come in?" Nicole stepped back automatically, her hand on her throat. Richard didn't tell me. He said a company called Elevation was interested. I didn't know." "There's a lot you didn't know," Zara said, walking past her into the foyer. The marble floors were the same. The chandelier was the same. But Zara was completely different. "Mom?" Haven whispered. "This place is like a museum." "It's just a house," Zara said. "Let's go to the meeting." They walked toward the study. Zara remembered the way perfectly. Nicole followed, making small shocked sounds. In the study, Richard Monroe sat behind his desk with his attorney. He looked up as they entered and froze. "Hello, Father," Zara said. The word felt like a weapon in her mouth. Richard stood slowly. He looked older, much older. His hair was completely gray. His face was lined. He stared at Zara like he was seeing a ghost. "Zara." "Mr. Monroe," Zara said. "Thank you for meeting with us. Shall we discuss terms?" For a moment, no one spoke. The attorney looked confused, glancing between Zara and Richard. Cameron stood beside Zara, solid and supportive. Haven stayed close to Dorothy, watching everything with wide eyes. "You're?" Richard couldn't seem to finish the sentence. "You're the CEO of Elevation Building Solutions." "Yes," Zara said, taking a seat at the conference table. "I built the company from nothing. It's worth over $50 million now. We're interested in acquiring Monroe Properties. Your attorney has reviewed our offer. Let's discuss whether you're interested in accepting." "I don't understand," Richard said, still standing. Where have you been?" "Building a life," Zara said. "Building a business. Being a mother to my daughter. Creating value. The usual things people do when they're not being thrown out in the rain." Nicole made a small sound. Richard's face showed pain, but Zara felt nothing. She had imagined this moment for years, and now that it was here, all she felt was cold clarity. Cameron opened his briefcase and pulled out documents. "These are the terms. We acquire 75% ownership of Monroe Properties. Mr. Monroe remains as president but reports to a new board. Ms. Monroe," he glanced at Nicole, "will be terminated immediately due to her involvement in the fraud case. The company will be restructured and integrated into Elevation Building Solutions portfolio." "You can't do this," Nicole said, her voice shaking. Richard, tell them they can't do this. Actually, we can, Zara said. Your company is facing bankruptcy. Your business partner is going to prison. Your banks are calling loans. You have about 3 weeks before everything collapses completely. We're offering you a chance to save something from this mess. She pulled out a separate folder. This is documentation of Gerard's fraud. It also includes evidence that Nicole approved multiple suspicious transactions. She knew what was happening and facilitated it. If you don't accept our terms, I'll make sure this information is delivered to the prosecutors investigating the case. You're blackmailing us? Nicole said, her voice rising. No, Zara said calmly. I'm explaining your options. Accept our terms, Richard keeps a job and some dignity. Refuse, and you lose everything, and Nicole probably faces charges. Richard finally sat down. He looked old and beaten. Why are you doing this? Business, Zara said. Your company has valuable contracts and properties. We can turn it around and make it profitable again. That's not why, Richard said. You're doing this because of what happened 10 years ago. Zara leaned back in her chair. Do you know what happened the night you threw me out? I walked to a homeless shelter in the rain. I was 5 months pregnant. I had $47. I slept in a room with 5 other women and promised my unborn daughter that we would never be that powerless again. She gestured to Haven, who was watching her grandfather with something like disgust. That's Haven. She's 11. She's smart, strong, and knows her worth. Unlike her mother at 17, she will never doubt that she deserves to be protected and valued. I'm sorry, Richard said, and he looked like he meant it. Zara, I'm so sorry. I was wrong. Nicole convinced me that you were ruining the family's reputation, that keeping you would hurt Tyler and Becca, that. Stop, Zara said. I don't need your apology. I don't need your explanations. I need your signature on these documents. Everything else is irrelevant. The meeting lasted 2 hours. Richard's attorney tried to negotiate better terms, but Cameron was prepared for every objection. The truth was simple. Monroe Properties had no leverage. They needed this deal more than Zara needed their company. In the end, Richard signed. His hand shook as he put pen to paper, transferring control of his life's work to his daughter. Nicole cried, but Zara didn't care. She watched her father's signature appear on the acquisition documents and felt nothing. No triumph, no satisfaction. Just emptiness. One more thing, Zara said as they prepared to leave. Tyler and Becca. Your other children. Where are they? They're at the office, Richard said quietly. They both work for the company. Not anymore, Zara said. They can reapply for positions if they want, but there's no nepotism in my company. Everyone earns their place. They didn't do anything wrong, Richard said. They were children when... I know, Zara interrupted. That's why I'm giving them the option to reapply. But they don't get free passes just because of their last name. I didn't get one. Neither will they. On the way out, Zara paused in the foyer. She looked at the stairs where she used to run down as a child. The door that had shut her out. The life that had rejected her. How do you feel? Dorothy asked softly. I don't know, Zara said honestly. I thought I would feel more. Haven took her hand. Can we go home now? Home. Not this mansion, but the house Zara had bought with Cameron. The life she had built with her own hands. Yes, Zara said. Let's go home. As the limousine pulled away, Zara looked back one last time. Nicole was visible in the window watching them leave. Richard wasn't visible. Maybe he was still in his study processing what had just happened. Zara had returned. She had won. She owned her father's company. She had proven that throwing her away was the biggest mistake of his life. So why did she feel so empty? Cameron put his arm around her. Second thoughts. No, Zara said. I thought this would feel different. I thought I would feel vindicated or powerful or something. But I just feel tired. That's because revenge is exhausting, Cameron said. You spent 10 years building toward this moment. Now it's done. The question is what comes next. What came next? Zara leaned against Cameron and closed her eyes. She had her company. She had her family. She had everything she ever wanted. But she also had her father's broken empire and the responsibility of fixing it. She had won the battle, but the war was just beginning. The first month after the acquisition was brutal. Zara moved into Monroe Properties' corporate office and immediately started making changes. She brought in her management team from Elevation, fired 3 executives who were part of Gerard's scheme, and implemented new financial controls. The employees were nervous. They didn't know who this young woman was or why she had taken over their company. Some resented her. Others were curious. A few had figured out that she was Richard Monroe's daughter, and the gossip spread quickly. Richard came to work every day, but his office was no longer the corner suite. Zara had given him a smaller office on the second floor. He reported to her now, and the role reversal was obvious to everyone. 2 weeks into the restructuring, Tyler and Becca showed up at Zara's office. She hadn't seen them in 10 years. Tyler was 24 now, tall and serious looking in a suit. Becca was the same age, with Nicole's blonde hair but a softer expression. "Can we talk to you?" Tyler asked. Zara gestured to the chairs across from her desk. "You have 10 minutes. They sat. Becca was nervous, picking at her nail polish. Tyler seemed more composed. "We want to apologize," he said, "for what happened 10 years ago. We should have done more." "You were 14, Zara said. "What could you have done?" "We could have tried to find you," Becca said, her voice shaking. "We could have snuck out, called you something. But Mom watched everything we did. She read our texts, monitored our computers. She said you had run off with some guy and didn't want to be found. We didn't know she threw you out. We didn't know you were pregnant and alone. Dad told us you chose to leave." Zara studied them both. She remembered watching them from the driveway that night, framed in the window. "Did you believe that?" "We were kids," Tyler said. "We believed what we were told. But when we got older, we started questioning things. About a year ago, Becca found some old security footage. She saw what really happened that night." Becca pulled out her phone and showed Zara a video. It was grainy, dated 10 years ago, but it clearly showed Nicole throwing clothes out the window, Richard standing silent, and Zara standing in the rain. The audio was muffled, but Nicole's words were audible. "Get off my property." "We confronted Mom about it," Becca said. "She said you had embarrassed the family and they had to make hard choices. She said it was for the best, that you would have dragged us all down. But seeing that video..." Her voice broke. "You were our sister. You were 17 and pregnant and they threw you out like garbage." Zara felt something shift in her chest. All these years she had assumed Tyler and Becca had watched and done nothing because they didn't care. But they had been children, manipulated by their mother, fed lies about what happened. "Why are you showing me this now?" Zara asked. "Because we want you to know the truth," Tyler said. "We're not asking for jobs or favors. We just want you to know that we're sorry. We're sorry we didn't find you sooner. We're sorry we believed the lies. And we're sorry that our mother is the reason all of this happened." Zara looked at the video again. At her 17-year-old self, soaked and broken. At her father's silence. At Nicole's cruelty. "Your mother is being prosecuted for fraud. The evidence against her is substantial. She'll probably go to prison." "We know," Becca said. "And honestly, we're not sad about it. She's been using us our whole lives, positioning us as the real family while erasing you. We didn't understand that until recently, but now we see it. She wanted your inheritance, your place in Dad's life, everything that should have been partly yours. The inheritance was never the point," Zara said. "I didn't need his money. I needed him to protect me and he didn't." "He knows that now," Tyler said. "He's destroyed by what he did. He won't say it because he's too proud, but he's devastated. Seeing you with your daughter, with your fiancé, with everything you built, he knows he lost something he can never get back." "Good," Zara said coldly. "He should know that." They sat in silence for a moment. Then Becca said, "Can I ask you something? About Haven? What about her? Does she know about us? That she has an uncle and an aunt?" Zara thought about Haven, who had watched the whole confrontation at the mansion with wide eyes. "She knows you exist. But she also knows you were part of the family that rejected us. She's not interested in a relationship." "That's fair," Becca said. "But if she ever wants to talk or if you need anything..." She wrote her number on a business card and slid it across the desk. "We're here. Not as the kids who watched from the window, but as adults who understand what was done to you was unforgivable." After they left, Zara sat alone in her office. She looked at the video on Becca's phone, which Becca had sent to her. She watched her teenage self standing in the rain and felt a wave of grief for that girl. That night, she talked to Cameron about it. They were in their home office, going over financial reports for the merger. Haven was asleep upstairs. "Tyler and Becca came to see me," Zara said. "They apologized." "How did that feel?" "Complicated. They were kids. They didn't know the whole truth. Part of me wants to hold on to the anger, but another part understands they were victims of Nicole's manipulation too." "Are you going to forgive them?" Zara thought about it. "Maybe eventually. But not Richard. Never Richard. He was the adult. He made the choice. Tyler and Becca were collateral damage. He was the one who threw me out. The restructuring of Monroe Properties revealed more problems than Zara anticipated. Nicole had been systematically draining company resources for years, hiding it through complex transactions that Gerard facilitated. The full scope of the damage was staggering. But there were also opportunities. The company had good contracts and properties that were being mismanaged. With proper oversight and integration with elevation systems, the company could be profitable again. Zara threw herself into the work, spending 12-hour days at the office. She barely saw Haven, who was with Dorothy or Cameron most evenings. The wedding was 2 months away and she hadn't even looked at the venue or menu options. One night, Cameron confronted her. "You're drowning in this." "I'm fixing a broken company," Zara said. "No, you're punishing yourself," Cameron said. "You got what you wanted, control of your father's company, proof that you succeeded. But you're not satisfied because revenge never satisfies. It just creates a void where peace should be." "I don't need peace," Zara snapped. "I need to build something that can never be taken away." "You already did that," Cameron said. "Elevation is worth over $50 million. Haven is thriving. We have a home, a life, a future. But you're so focused on Monroe Properties that you're missing all of it." "I'm doing this for Haven," Zara said. "Are you?" "Because from where I'm standing, you're doing this for the girl you were at 17. And I get it, Zara. I understand wanting to prove something. But that girl doesn't exist anymore. You're not her. You don't have to keep fighting her battles." Zara felt tears start to fall. She was so tired. She had worked so hard for so long, and now that she had everything she wanted, she didn't know how to stop. "I don't know how to let it go," she whispered. "I don't know how to stop being angry." Cameron pulled her close. "Then we figure it out together. But first, you need to admit that owning Monroe Properties isn't giving you what you thought it would." He was right. Zara knew he was right. She had imagined that acquiring her father's company would feel like triumph, like vindication. Instead, it just felt like work. Hard, exhausting, joyless work. The next day, she called a meeting with Richard. He came to her office looking nervous. "You wanted to see me?" "Sit down," Zara said. "We need to talk." Richard sat. He looked tired, diminished. This man who used to command respect now just looked like an old man who had made terrible choices. "Why did you do it?" Zara asked. "That night. Why did you let Nicole convince you to throw me out?" Richard was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "I was scared. Nicole said if we kept you, if people found out you were pregnant at 17, it would ruin the family's reputation. She said investors would question my judgment, that clients would pull contracts. She made it sound like keeping you would destroy everything I'd built. So you chose your business over your daughter." "Yes," Richard said, meeting her eyes. "And it's the worst decision I ever made. Not because of what you became, though watching you build all this is humbling, but because I broke a promise to your mother. When she was dying, she made me swear I would always protect you. And I didn't. I let Nicole convince me that protecting my reputation was more important." "What was your reputation worth?" Zara asked. "Because I can tell you what mine is worth. Every day Haven looks at me and knows I will never abandon her, no matter what. Every day Dorothy is proud of who I became. Every day Cameron loves me, not despite my past but including it. That's what my reputation is worth. What's yours?" Richard's face crumpled. "Nothing. My reputation is worth nothing. Nicole is going to prison for fraud. My business partner betrayed me. My company would have collapsed without you. And my daughter, my brilliant, strong daughter, had to save herself because I failed her." "Yes," Zara said simply. "You did. Can you ever forgive me?" Zara thought about it. "I don't know. Maybe someday. But Richard, even if I forgive you, we will never have what we could have had. You missed everything. My pregnancy, Haven's birth, her first words, her first day of school. You missed watching me build my company. You missed me needing a father. Those moments are gone forever." "I know," Richard said. "But I'm here now. If you'll let me, I'd like to be part of Haven's life. Not as a replacement for anything, but just as someone who wants to know her." "That's Haven's choice," Zara said. "Not mine. If she wants a relationship with you, I won't stop it. But I won't force it either. You'll have to prove you're worth her time." Richard nodded, tears in his eyes. "I'll spend the rest of my life trying to prove that." After he left, Zara sat in her office and cried. She cried for the father she used to have and the one she got instead. She cried for the years of carrying anger and using it as fuel. She cried because she was finally starting to let it go. Cameron was right. Revenge wasn't satisfying. It was just empty. But maybe forgiveness didn't have to mean forgetting. Maybe it could just mean deciding to stop letting the past control her future. She still owned Monroe Properties. She still had control. But maybe the point wasn't punishment. Maybe the point was building something better from the ashes of what broke. 6 months after the acquisition, Monroe Properties had been fully integrated into Elevation Building Solutions. The combined company was now worth over $200 million and growing. Zara was 38 weeks pregnant. Not literally, she was 27, and she had rebuilt her father's company into something stronger than it had ever been. But the real transformation wasn't in the balance sheets. It was in the relationships that were slowly, carefully being rebuilt. Tyler and Becca had both reapplied for positions in the company. Zara had made them go through the same interview process as everyone else. Tyler was hired as a junior analyst. Becca got a position in client services. They were starting at the bottom, but they were starting. Haven had met them for coffee at Dorothy's suggestion. Zara wasn't there. She let Haven decide if she wanted a relationship with her aunt and uncle. Haven came home and said, "They're okay." They apologized a lot. Tyler seems serious and boring, but Becca is nice. She wants to take me shopping. Do you want to go shopping with her? Zara asked. Haven shrugged. Maybe. If you're okay with it. Baby, you get to choose who's in your life, Zara said. Not me. If you want to get to know them, do it. If you don't, that's okay too. What about Grandpa? Haven asked. Do I have to see him? It was the first time Haven had called Richard that. Zara felt something twist in her chest. You don't have to do anything. Has he asked to see you? He sent me a letter, Haven said, pulling it from her backpack. Want to read it? Zara read the letter. It was short and careful, written in Richard's neat handwriting. He apologized for not being there when Haven was born. He said he would understand if she never wanted to meet him, but he hoped someday she might give him a chance. He included a photo of Zara as a child, maybe 8 years old, smiling on a swing set. Where did he get this? Zara asked, her voice tight. I don't know, Haven said. Do I look like you? Zara studied the photo and then looked at her daughter. A little. You have my eyes. Do you want me to meet him? I want you to do what feels right to you, Zara said. Just know that if you meet him, it doesn't erase what he did. You're allowed to be curious about him and still be angry at him. Those things can exist at the same time. Are you angry at him? Haven asked. Zara thought about it. Less than I used to be. But I'll probably always carry some anger. He made a choice that hurt me deeply. But I'm working on not letting that anger control my life anymore. Haven met Richard a week later at a coffee shop with Zara present. It was brief and awkward. Richard cried when he saw Haven. Haven was polite but distant. Zara watched them interact and felt detached from the whole thing, like she was watching actors in a play. After, in the car, Haven said, "He's sad." Yes, Zara agreed. He wants me to forgive him. That's his problem, not yours. You don't owe him forgiveness. But maybe I want to forgive him, Haven said thoughtfully. Not for him. For me. Because carrying around anger sounds exhausting. Zara looked at her daughter, this wise, thoughtful 11-year-old, and felt proud. You're smarter than I was at your age. Smarter than I am now. The biggest change happened with Nicole. Her trial was quick and decisive. She was found guilty on multiple fraud charges and sentenced to 8 years in federal prison. Zara didn't attend the trial, but she read the news coverage. Tyler and Becca went to the sentencing. They came to Zara's office afterward, both looking exhausted. Mom barely looked at us, Becca said. She spent the whole time insisting she was innocent, that Gerard forced her into it, that Dad should have protected her. She's not taking responsibility for anything. Some people never do, Zara said. The prosecutor mentioned you in closing arguments, Tyler said. He talked about how Nicole systematically worked to eliminate you from the family so her children could inherit everything. He called you the real victim of her scheme. I'm not a victim, Zara said automatically. I'm a survivor. Can you be both? Becca asked quietly. Zara thought about that. Could she be both? She had spent so many years refusing to be a victim, building herself into someone powerful and successful. But maybe acknowledging that she was victimized didn't make her weak. Maybe it just made her honest. Maybe, Zara said. I'm still figuring that out. The wedding was 3 weeks away. Zara and Cameron had decided on a small ceremony, just 50 guests, mostly colleagues and Dorothy's extended family. Richard wasn't invited. Tyler and Becca were, but only because Haven asked for them to be there. Dorothy, now 82, was in charge of flowers. She took the job seriously, consulting with florists and sending Zara endless photos of arrangements. "This is my granddaughter's wedding," she said. "It's going to be perfect." "You've been more of a mother to me than anyone," Zara told her one day. Dorothy squeezed her hand. "And you've been more of a daughter to me than I could have hoped for. Watching you build this life, watching you become who you are, it's been the greatest privilege of my life." One day, Zara received an email from the women's shelter where she stayed when she was 17. Gloria, the intake worker who had wrapped a blanket around her that first night, had retired. The shelter was holding a fundraiser and wanted to honor Gloria's years of service. They were also announcing a new initiative, a scholarship program for young mothers trying to get their education and build careers. The email asked if Zara would consider being a speaker at the fundraiser, sharing her story as an example of what was possible. Zara stared at the email for a long time. She had never publicly talked about being homeless and pregnant. She had built her professional reputation on business acumen, not on being a sob story. But Gloria had saved her life that night. The shelter had given her a place to sleep when she had nowhere else to go. She accepted the speaking invitation. The fundraiser was held in a hotel ballroom. 300 people attended. Zara sat at the head table with Cameron, Haven, and Dorothy. Gloria was there too, now in her 70s, still with the same kind eyes. When it was time for Zara's speech, she walked to the podium with note cards she had prepared. But when she got there, she put the note cards aside. "I was 17 when I came to this shelter," she began. "I was 5 months pregnant, soaking wet from rain, and I had $47 in my wallet. My family had thrown me out. My baby's father had abandoned me. I had nothing." She told them about that night, about Gloria wrapping her in a blanket, about sleeping in a room with 5 other women and making a promise to her unborn baby. She told them about Dorothy giving her a job and a room, about building her business while raising Haven alone, about the years of struggle and determination. But she also told them about the moment she realized she was chasing revenge instead of peace, about acquiring her father's company and feeling empty instead of triumphant, about slowly, painfully learning that success wasn't about proving people wrong, it was about building something meaningful. "I started a scholarship program in Dorothy's name," Zara said, gesturing to Dorothy, who was crying. "It provides funding for young mothers who want to pursue education and career training. Because I got lucky. I found Dorothy. I had help when I needed it most. But so many women don't get that chance." She looked out at the audience. "This shelter gave me a place to start from. And I want to make sure other women get that same chance. So I'm donating $1 million to expand your shelter and your programs. And I'm committing to match donations up to another $1 million. Because everybody deserves a place to start from. Everybody deserves a second chance." The applause was deafening. Gloria stood up, crying and clapping. Haven was crying too. Cameron squeezed her hand. After the speech, women lined up to talk to Zara. Some were shelter residents, some were former residents, some were volunteers. They thanked her. They shared their stories. They told her she gave them hope. One young woman, 19 years old with a baby in her arms, said, "I'm where you were. How did you do it?" Zara looked at her, at the fear and determination in her eyes, at the baby who needed her. "You do it one day at a time," Zara said. "You make a plan. You find your people. You refuse to stay down. And you remember that where you are now doesn't define where you'll end up. What if I'm not as strong as you?" "You don't need to be as strong as me," Zara said. "You just need to be strong enough for today. Tomorrow will take care of itself." Driving home that night, Zara felt something she hadn't felt in years: lightness. She had spent so long carrying anger and pain, using it as fuel. But tonight, she had turned that pain into something that could help other people. She had taken the worst moment of her life and used it to create hope for someone else. "That was beautiful," Cameron said. "I'm proud of you." "I'm proud of me too," Zara said. And she meant it. The girl who was thrown out in the rain had become a woman who built shelter for others. The teenager who had nothing had become a CEO who gave freely. The revenge she had chased for so long had transformed into something better: redemption. She still owned Monroe Properties. Richard still worked for her. The power dynamic had completely reversed. But Zara realized that the real victory wasn't in that reversal. The real victory was in becoming someone she was proud to be, regardless of who was watching. The wedding took place on a clear Saturday in autumn. Zara stood in the bridal suite of an elegant venue, wearing a dress that made her feel like she was floating. Haven was beside her in a maid of honor dress, helping with the veil. "You look beautiful, Mom," Haven said. "So do you, baby." Dorothy was there too, seated in a comfortable chair, wearing a lavender dress and a smile that hadn't left her face all day. "Your mother would be so proud," she said to Zara. "I wish she could see this." "Me too," Zara said. She thought about her mother sometimes, wondered what she would think of the woman Zara had become. Would she be proud? Would she be disappointed that Zara took so long to let go of anger? Zara hoped it was the former. There was a knock on the door. Becca poked her head in. "You have a visitor. He says it's important." Zara's stomach tightened. "Who?" "Your father. He's not trying to come in. He just wanted to give you something." Zara looked at Cameron's mother, who was helping with makeup, then at Dorothy, then at Haven. "What do you think?" "It's your day," Haven said. "But maybe hear him out?" Zara walked to the door. Richard stood in the hallway wearing a suit, holding a small box. He looked nervous. "I know I'm not welcome at the wedding," he said immediately. "I'm not trying to intrude. I just wanted to give you this." He handed her the box. Inside was a necklace, a delicate silver chain with a small pendant. Zara recognized it immediately. It had belonged to her mother. "She wore this on her wedding day," Richard said. "I kept it after she died because I couldn't bear to get rid of it. I was going to give it to you on your wedding day, but—" He trailed off. "But you threw me out before I could get married," Zara finished. "Yes." Richard's voice was thick. "I can't fix what I did. I can't get back those years. But I wanted you to have this. I wanted you to have a piece of your mother with you today." Zara looked at the necklace. It was beautiful, simple, elegant. She remembered her mother wearing it. "Why now?" "Because Tyler told me you're happy," Richard said. "He said you smile all the time now, that you laugh with Cameron, that you and Haven are building a life that's full of joy. And I realized that's what your mother would have wanted for you. Not revenge, not proving me wrong. Just happiness." "I don't need your blessing to be happy," Zara said. "I know. But I wanted you to know that you have it anyway. You're an amazing mother, an incredible businesswoman, and a person your mother would have been proud to know. I failed you in every way a father can fail a daughter. But you succeeded anyway. And that's all you, Zara. That's your strength, your determination, your heart." Zara felt tears start to form. She had wanted this moment for years, wanted her father to see what he lost, to acknowledge his failure, to feel the weight of what he'd done. Now that it was here, she didn't feel triumphant. She just felt sad for all the lost time. "Thank you for the necklace," she said. "But Richard, I need you to understand something. Giving me this doesn't erase what happened. It doesn't make us family again. We're business associates. Haven might choose to have a relationship with you someday. But you and I, we're done. We're polite, we're professional, but we're not father and daughter anymore." "I understand," Richard said. "And I'll take that. It's more than I deserve." After he left, Zara put on the necklace. It felt right, wearing something of her mother's. She looked at herself in the mirror, a 27-year-old woman about to marry a man she loved, with a daughter she adored, with a business she built from nothing. She looked happy. She looked free. The ceremony was beautiful. Zara walked down the aisle with Dorothy on one arm and Haven on the other, the two people who had been there when she needed family most. Cameron stood at the altar looking at her like she was the only person in the world. The vows they wrote were simple and honest. Zara promised to share her life, to trust him with her past and her future, to build something together that was bigger than either of them alone. Cameron promised to love Haven as his own, to support Zara's ambitions, to be her partner in every sense of the word. When the officiant said, "You may kiss the bride," Cameron pulled her close and whispered, "I'm so proud to be your husband." "I'm proud to be your wife," Zara whispered back. The reception was joyful. Tyler and Becca gave a joint toast about second chances and new beginnings. Dorothy cried through the entire thing. Haven gave a speech about her mom being the strongest person she knew, which made everyone cry. Late in the evening, Zara found herself standing on the terrace overlooking the gardens. Cameron came to stand beside her. "Happy?" he asked. "Very," Zara said. "I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop, for something to go wrong, but it doesn't. Things are just good." "That's because you're letting them be good," Cameron said. "For years you were waiting for the next crisis, the next battle. But you're done fighting now." "Am I?" "I think so. You rebuilt your father's company. You created a scholarship program. You're surrounded by people who love you. You're not the girl in the rain anymore, Zara. You're the woman who built an empire." Zara thought about that. The girl in the rain. She had carried her for so long, used her pain as motivation, turned her trauma into fuel. But Cameron was right, she wasn't that girl anymore. That girl had survived. This woman was thriving. "What do we do now?" Zara asked. "Whatever we want," Cameron said. "We build our company. We raise Haven. We travel, we create, we live. We do all the things you didn't have time for when you were focused on revenge." "And Monroe Properties?" "It's a successful subsidiary of your company. Richard works there. Tyler and Becca are building their careers. It's just business now, not a battleground." "Just business." Zara liked the sound of that. They went back inside and danced. Haven joined them and they swayed together. This family they had built from broken pieces. Dorothy watched from her table, smiling so wide her face must have hurt. Later, when the reception was winding down, Zara took a moment alone. She went to the bathroom and looked at herself in the mirror. The woman looking back was confident, successful, loved. She touched her mother's necklace and thought about the journey from that rainy night to this moment. She thought about Gloria at the shelter, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders. About Dorothy offering her a job when no one else would. About Patricia mentoring her in business. About Cameron choosing to love her and Haven completely. She thought about Haven growing up secure and loved, never doubting her worth. About Tyler and Becca, working to earn their place instead of coasting on their name. About Richard, broken and humbled, finally understanding what he lost. Most of all, she thought about the promise she made that first night in the shelter. The promise that she and Haven would never be powerless again. The promise that they would build something that couldn't be taken away. She had kept that promise. She had done more than survive. She had built an empire, created a family, changed lives. The best revenge wasn't destroying Richard Monroe. It was becoming someone so successful, so loved, so completely herself that his rejection became irrelevant. He threw her away like she was worthless. She proved every day that she was priceless. Zara went back to the reception. Cameron was talking to some business associates. Haven was dancing with Becca. Dorothy was holding court with Cameron's mother, probably telling embarrassing stories about Zara. This was her life now. Not perfect but real. Not revenge but redemption. Not proving anyone wrong but living her truth. The girl who was kicked out at 17 had returned years later, not just stepping out of a limo with a billionaire, but as a billionaire herself. More importantly, she had returned as a woman who knew her worth, who built her own security, who chose her own family. And that was the real victory.